What's going on, everybody? Welcome in the Vikings Now by Chat Sports. I'm your host, Patrick Seatman, and coming up on today's show, we're going to be talking about the new quarterback one here in Minnesota, J.J. McCarthy, and why he just got some great news from Kevin O'Connell. We'll explain all of that here in a second, but first, let's start off with our Minnesota Vikings fun fact of the day, and it's a little depressing, I'm not going to lie. So the last time the Vikings won 2 consecutive playoff games was the 1987 season when they beat the Saints and the 49ers. I saw this and I had to go back and check. Like, obviously, you had the 98 year, you had the 2017 year, but both those years, the Vikings had the number 1 seed. So they won one game, got to the NFC title, but they have not won consecutive playoff games since 1987. Hopefully, J.J. McCarthy changes that. And speaking about J.J. McCarthy, if you guys are a truther, if you are a J.J. McCarthy believer, let's get the good vibes rolling down below in the comment section. Type those 9s. Type his jersey number if you guys believe in this kid from Chicago, went to Michigan. Now he's the quarterback one for your Minnesota Vikings. So type those 9s down below in the comment section. All right, so why did J.J. McCarthy get some great news, in my opinion? Well, Kevin O'Connell was talking about the Vikings offense from a philosophical perspective, and he pretty much addressed it. He showed some self-awareness that, yes, we do need to make some changes to make J.J. McCarthy's life a whole lot easier. And this is what he had to say, saying, we've thrown the ball at a pretty high clip, like a world-class effective clip for 3 years, with Kirk Cousins and Sam Darnold last year. Now I want to run the football. I want to get back to the truest nature of where the foundation of this offense was. And Kevin O'Connell, I hope you are ready to run the football this upcoming season, because that has been, probably my biggest gripe with KOC over the last couple of seasons, and specifically in that Rams playoff game. Like, I understand you want to take advantage of your advantages on the outside, and you always have an advantage with Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, TJ Hawkinson, but I felt like he got too pass happy, and I felt like he didn't show enough, self-awareness to realize, like, hey, this offensive line's getting their ass kicked up front. Let's go turn around and hand the football off more than he did. And also the Vikings, they haven't really been able to run the ball under Kevin O'Connell. Like back in that 2022 season when Dalvin Cook was the lead back, only 97.7 rush yards per game. That was 27th in the league. And then Madison, when he was the lead back in 2023, they really struggled to run the football, only averaging 91.4 yards per game, which was 29th. But, this past season, we saw some increase in that production where you average 108.9 yards per game. That was 19th. So it's trending in the right direction. I like what I'm seeing, but, my take on the Vikings running the football more. I am a massive J.J. McCarthy believer. I think he could potentially be a top 7, top 10 quarterback in the league pretty quick. Like year 1 or 2, I have a feeling we could be talking about J.J. being one of the better young quarterbacks here in the National Football League. But with all that being said, if you want to make his life easier, if you want to put him in advantageous situations, you have to be able to run the football, because he has done this dating back to high school and Nazareth Academy, then he went to IMG, and then especially when he was at Michigan, they had one of the best rushing offenses in all of college football. So if you want to make his life easier, turn around, hand the ball off, get him going in these play-action games. And also Michigan, their rushing numbers when they had JJ were ridiculous, specifically the 2022 season. This team ran for over 3,300 yards, averaging 5.6 yards per carry. And then in 2023, JJ had to do a lot more, ended up winning the national championship that season, but they still ran for over 2,500 yards, 4.5 yards per carry. And I think when you think about JJ, the type of quarterback he is, like, just because Michigan didn't ask him to throw the ball 40 times a game, I don't think that means he can't do it and be effective. But just like with all quarterbacks, giving them a run game, especially these young guys, it can help a ton. And really, there's no excuse for Kevin O'Connell not being able to run the football, because, yes, you could have made the argument to me the past couple of years. Well, you had Bradbury, Ed Ingram, Dalton Reisner on the interior, but now there's no excuse. You brought in Ryan Kelly, Will Fries. They're going to have the chemistry from day one since they played together with the Colts. You're bringing back Christian Darrisaw. Blake Brandel, Michael Juergens, whoever that is, at the left guard spot. You're expecting better production there because of the guys around him. And Brian O'Neill still being a very effective right tackle. There's really no excuse. And plus, your running back room now, I think it's pretty loaded. And I was joking around. I was talking about this with a couple of my buddies, but I said, I think the Vikes got 2 top 10 running backs in the league. And yes, am I drinking a little too much purple Kool-Aid there? Perhaps. But I am a massive fan of Aaron Jones and Jordan Mason. And specifically, I'm a massive fan of Aaron Jones. If he's not having to get, 250 touches in a season, if you bring that down to like 125, 150, I think he could be way more effective in those limited amount of opportunities. And that's what Kevin O'Connell talked about here, saying when he has, talking about Aaron Jones, historically had that 1A, 1B backfield structure, he could be a total game changer every time he touches the ball. So it was always about bringing Aaron back. Huge leadership role on our team. Really assumed that from day one. But who are we going to pair him with? And we'll talk about that here in a second. But Aaron Jones this past season, he was very effective. Running behind a shaky offensive line, was still able to go for over 1,100 yards, 4.5 yards per carry, and absolutely know what a weapon he is in the passing game. 51 catches for Aaron Jones this past season is awesome stuff. 1,500 plus all-purpose yards. But, look at those carries. Look at those receptions. It's over 300. I don't think Aaron Jones should be sniffing 300 touches this season. Honestly, it should be around, like I was saying, 150, 175. I think that's the sweet spot for Aaron Jones. And, how do the Vikings reduce his carries? Well, you go trade for a guy like Jordan Mason, and Kevin O'Connell talked about that, saying we really felt like what we were looking for was right before our very eyes. A heavy slash runner, tough to tackle, gets in space, and has burst and explosion to finish runs. And also a guy that probably doesn't get enough credit in his pass protection and just every down versatility. So I love the addition of Jordan Mason, and we'll talk about him more a little bit on the second half of today's show. But I have a little hot take here. I don't know if this is something Kevin O'Connell is going to unveil during the first half of the season. But my hot take is that when it gets to, late November, December, January football, I think we're going to see KOC incorporate some quarterback design runs, maybe some RPOs, maybe some read options. But I think we're going to see Kevin O'Connell utilize J.J. McCarthy's athletic ability, which does get slept on. This guy's a great athlete. He's got great straight line speed. He can make guys miss in the hole. He is a very underrated athlete. So my hot take, Kevin O'Connell, not for the first half of the year. I think there's going to be a wrinkle with it. He's going to keep in his back pocket. But watch out for some quarterback design runs heading to Minnesota next season. All right, I'll ask you guys this prediction time for me here on the channel. Will the Vikings have a top 10 rushing offense for the first time under Kevin O'Connell? Give me a Y for yes. Give me an N for no. You guys let me know your thoughts if the Vikings will have a top 10 rushing offense this upcoming season. Now, coming up next here on the show, I do want to do a little more of a deep dive into Jordan Mason. And, I said this is my favorite move from the offseason, so I'll share with you guys all of these advanced analytics, all of these stats, and just kind of try to prove to you guys why Jordan Mason is that guy. But before we do so, I want to tell you guys about today's presenting sponsor, and that is PrizePicks. Now, if you guys download the PrizePicks app today and plug in that promo code CLNS, you guys will get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Now, what is PrizePicks? Well, it's the best place to get real money sports action. With over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings, PrizePicks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least two players for a shot to win up to 1,000 times your cash. Run your game all season long on PrizePicks. Now, I don't know if you guys were watching that Timberwolves-Nuggets game last night, but it was crazy, and I also had a PrizePicks lineup that I was tracking throughout the entire event, and it just made that game, which was already a great game, but it made it so much more enjoyable. And also with the Twins playing right now, if you guys want to put your baseball knowledge to the test, creating a PrizePicks lineup is a great way to do so. So download the app today, plug in that promo code CLNS, get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Download the PrizePicks app today, plug in that promo code CLNS, get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. A massive shout out to PrizePicks for sponsoring today's show. PrizePicks, run your game. Got that link for you guys in the comments and description of today's show. All right, let's deep dive on my favorite pickup from this offseason, Jordan Mason. I truly believe this guy's going to be a top 10 running back next season. Physical, bruiser, got great cutting ability. Guys, this guy checks every box in terms of running back, and it's shocking that he went undrafted. And also, his success last season, I don't think it was all because of the Kyle Shanahan offense. That obviously played an impact. One of the best rushing offenses and just one of the best rushing schemes in the National Football League. But we saw Jordan Mason not really have too much of a fall off between him and Christian McCaffrey. And one of my favorite stats here to look at is rushing yards over expected, where next-gen stats, they go in there, they determine how many yards a running back is supposed to get on any given play. And then if they go over that, then you get plus in the RYOE. but specifically what I'm showing you here is the stacked box rate versus rushing yards over expected, where you see on the far right of your screen, you see guys like Derrick Henry, Saquon Barkley, and then you see Jordan Mason still over there in terms of rushing yards over expected per attempt. But then also at the top of your screen, working your way up, that's how many times he faced a stacked box, which Jordan Mason was at the top of this. So he was facing stacked boxes, and he was also being very effective in that. And I think that is so telling because we saw, and rushing yards over expected was a big reason why I was able to kind of see the downfall of Dalvin Cook maybe a year earlier than most people kind of caught on to. And also us Vikings fans, I mean, just watching this team every week, like the eye test was also a big reason why Cook was not the same guy. But also that rushing yards over expected stat, I think it's one of the best stats in terms of evaluating running backs. So seeing Jordan Mason, shake out very well in that category, it's great to see. And KOC talked about Mason, saying, I do think Jordan's going to bring something to the table in those short yardage situations, those goal line situations, goal to go, where we've really let a lot to be desired as a football team. And yeah, I agree. Like, especially that Lions game last year. Like, what was Darnold 0 for 9 on the goal line passing situations? Kevin O'Connell refused to run the football, mainly because they just couldn't. And I think Jordan Mason is going to change life for the Vikings goal line offense, where you just have a guy, even if the blocking is not, up to par up front, he can just go and make one guy miss or just kind of put his shoulder into a linebacker and just kind of roll over and get to that goal line. So I think the goal line offense should be much improved. And also a big reason why I think the Vikes traded for him was what he did to Minnesota back in week 2, man. It was an unreal performance. Only 2 running backs this past year ran for over 100 yards against the Vikings, Jahmyr Gibbs, and obviously that being Jordan Mason. But he was great in the blitz pickup department in this game. There's a couple of viral clips of him picking up Ivan Pace and Blake Cashman. But even more advanced stats from him. I mean, he had 512 yards after contact this past season. That's unreal stuff. 23 10-plus yard runs, breakaway percentage, one of the highest in the National Football League, 36.9. And then he also forced 37 missed tackles. So this guy, he's a stud. I think he's going to be a household name, and I think he's going to be a fan favorite for us Vikings fans. And I could see a situation first half of the year where Mason's getting 65% of the first-team reps on offense, and then Aaron Jones is kind of that scat back working in, saving his legs for the second half of the year. So I couldn't be more excited for this run game. But let's show Jordan Mason some love here on today's show to close out. Give me a SKOL down below in the comment section if you're fired up to go see that big physical running back run that football for the Minnesota Vikings next season. If you guys also want to hit me up on Twitter, that's a handle right there, @PatSeeps. Give me a follow over there, and I'll give you guys a follow right on back. But we'll see you guys next time. As always, SKOL Vikes.